Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And oh boy, do I have an exciting guest for you today. Now, his name is Martin. Martin's the CEO at Pinch Marketing and who is a seasoned marketer with 2 decades of diverse experience. And he specializes in the tech, SaaS, and startup sectors. His entrepreneurial spirit has led him to found several startups, enriching his marketing philosophy with first-hand insights into the challenges and triumphs of business creation. Oh my goodness. Martin, welcome to the show. I am super excited to have you here.
Okay, super excited. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking super forward to this conversation.
You know what? I've got so many questions to ask you, right? Around tech, around startups, so many that are floating around my head right now. But before we get into the whole nitty gritty, I would love for you to share with our audience today a little bit about what your journey looked like to get to where you are today. Because we all know it doesn't happen in the click of a finger or overnight.
Yeah, so how much time do we have today? I'll try to give you a 3-minute version of it. So I think I want to go back in time a little bit. So I think to the 2008-ish time. I know it seems like so long ago now. But basically, I was working in a very corporate environment, big consulting companies, publishing companies, and I felt there was something missing in my life. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then a friend of mine came from San Francisco around 2008, and he told me about this Web 2.0. And he told me about that he's doing this startup in San Fran, all about, travel. And I'm like, oh my God, I love travel. And it was like user generated content. I'm like, what's that? What's UCG? What is that all about? And then so he showed me all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that. I want to do the same. So me and my other friend around 2009, 2010 decided, hey, we want to get into the Web 2.0. We're not engineers, we're not developers, but we're like, hey, let's dive in and see what happens. First problem, right?
Right.
We did jump in and we developed the first semantic search engine. It was called WeGo, and it will allow users to find events around the city. So there's a first of its kind at the time, allowing people in Toronto to find, what's happening tonight, what kind of genre of music is playing, what kind of vibe is in the venue, where are the restaurants that you want to find for $10 or less. So this was really, really, really revolutionary and interesting at the time. And we was really super excited. We got our first 1 million users. And we're like, oh my God, we're off to the right start. And the idea always was like, let's experiment with a small city like Toronto and see if we can expand from there. And we got very close to the point where we started talking to investors, and then something called Facebook events happened, and and Yelp came into Canada, and I'm like, oh, here we go, and that's where that's where it finished, right? It was a fantastic. But it was a fantastic opportunity. Unfortunately, I sold what I could at the time, which was really just to salvage, my ego and my losses. But what I did gain from it is this 2 things. I think you mentioned community, Kay, earlier. Is like I've got to get to know the community and the startup in Toronto. A lot of developers, a lot of startup CEOs, the investor community, and I was hooked. I loved it. I absolutely adored people with the like-minded drive and determination and ideas and this relentless agility, that grit that made them feel like, and I thought, wow, this is really the environment that I'm loving. So I'm like, okay, how do I get back into this? How do I pick myself up and come back to this game? So, but at the same time, I was burned out, right? I had a failed startup. I was still working full time at the large consulting company. And I'm like, okay, I need a break. I packed my bags, packed my family, and we decided to take a trip around the world. And 26 countries later, 40,000 kilometers later. I know I didn't tell you about that. So I just want to see the surprise on your face. I wanted to, and that was about 1.5 years to really just soul searching, seeing what I really wanted to do. And when I came back, and I'm like, okay, I have this renewed energy and drive to try again. So I did a few different things. One of the companies that I started again, which was really, really, really interesting, it was, and my kid was 3 years old at the time, and I decided and traveling was a fresh thing in our mind, and we realized that there's a lot of kids out there that need an engaging way to learn about geography. So we decided, how can we combine, the world maps on the wall with like the latest technologies like AR, so augmented reality. So I
Right.
developed this prototype where you could use your phone, a mobile device, or a tablet, and a kid could point at the picture, which is in this case the world map, and they could click on some of these items would just come alive on the phone. They could
Ooh.
click on that, and that would become interactive. So so it was a fantastic little tool for kids, and it was engaging, and and yeah, I started selling those maps around the world. A lot of customers in the UK and the States and
Wait, how
Canada.
long ago was this?
What's this? Sorry.
How long ago did you create this like augmented map?
I want to say around 2013ish, so almost 10 years ago
Oh
now.
my goodness. Okay, so it was
Why
really
did you buy one? You didn't know?
no, I didn't. But I've really got into the whole AR as well myself. But I'm like
Mhm.
2013, like barely people spoke about it. People didn't even know about it then, right? Unless they were
It,
involved into it in the industry, like yourself.
Yeah, and part of me thinks that one of the reasons why that it wasn't taking off with this sort of hockey stick is because I
Mm,
think it was too early too. Like
right.
I partnered up with a company out of Holland called Layer, and they had this technology developed, and I thought, okay, I'm going to see if I can collaborate with them, and we did some interesting things together, and it was really exciting, but ultimately it was maybe too much ahead of its time because a lot of people still were still playing, most games on iPhones. They didn't necessarily use AR technologies yet. So, but again, another great experience. But it wasn't. I still had to get another day job, like it wasn't. And I decided, you know what, as much as there's potential and this is great, again, I feel like this is not necessarily my thing. So I went to back, but I started working with more in an arena in a digital agency capacity. So that gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of business owners, small organizations, less than 10 million in revenue on a yearly basis. And I started working for a machining company. I started working for a company creating chips somewhere in North America for cars. Like a plethora of different kinds of clients, which gave me like this variety of different kinds of marketing projects I could work on, which was super exciting. And I'm like, oh, and that's when I started feeling like I'm learning. I'm relearning about marketing. And again, I felt this passion. So I started working for startups and worked for the tech company. I worked for a couple SaaS organizations leading their marketing teams, developing teams, experimenting with interesting tactics. And then I want to say back in 2019, that's when Pinch Marketing was formed. And there's a good reason why it's called Pinch. It's because it was the saying, helping out somebody in a pinch. That's exactly what happened. Not only were we in a pinch because we were working for an organization that was in dire straits, we said, we might need to do something of our own. And so out of dire need, we had to form the company. But at the same time, we also realized that there's an opportunity out there. There's a lot of organizations that either are understaffed in their marketing departments. They need to get stuff done quickly. And we can help them out in a pinch. So so the company was born out of need. And out of and interesting enough, COVID kind of helped us go up in value because we were focusing on digital marketing. And
Right.
what happened with COVID happened, right? A lot of organizations no longer that direct selling, direct marketing, like in events and other ways, completely disappeared, right? People couldn't go anywhere. So all those budgets moved toward digital marketing. And there was an advent of digital marketing at the time, and we were like positioned in the right place because we were like, okay, we not only do we understand digital marketing, but we can get to market fast. We knew the technology space. So yeah, here we are. Long
Wow.
story short, we serve not only the large OEMs like in the space, like, AWS, Microsoft, but we also work with very small SaaS organizations, startups, companies that are just getting into the marketing groove of things to see if we can get the value. So I promised 3 minutes. I'm
You're all
so
good.
wrong. Sorry. Apologize.
I want to take a couple of steps back on what you said earlier on when you had that event company platform where you can find out what's going on locally. Now,
Mhm.
when Yelp came on and all these other big organizations, why did you decide to actually sell and not just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Why, what was the thought process there?
Yeah, ultimately, I was bootstrapping the company. Me and my partner were paying
Mm.
out of pocket for the development of it. So we had to iterate. With technologies these days, like if you don't keep coding and updating the software, it becomes obsolete in 3 months' time.
Right.
That was very much a reality. So the bills kept growing, and so we need an injection of investors. And the investors, looking at the ecosystem, what's happening in the world, i.e., Facebook, they decided that there was a dominant player getting into the marketplace, that
Ah.
there's not enough. It was too risky for them to go with a small little startup out of Canada, versus trying to go after the behemoth that was the Facebook had become, and Yelp was already the big player. So they wanted to take a more cautious route, saying, you know what, sorry, this doesn't look like, and it seems interesting, but we feel that Facebook will take over, and it did, especially the events module, right? Because and it kind of it helped us discover a flaw in our thinking. We thought that people, how they think about events is by going into a place like our site, trying to
Mhm.
find like, hey, what do they want to do that week? But ultimately, that's not how people think about going out. They have usually in a group of friends that there's one person who really has the ideas, and they have the drive to sort of say, hey guys, this is where we're going to go.
Right.
So
Okay.
only one person out of the 10 out of the group will be the one who does the research, does trying to figure out what's happening in the city. The rest is about the connection with their friends. And
Mm.
Facebook had that down, right? Facebook really had that social aspect, the connectivity of it. So really people, and then when you start asking people don't care where they go as long as they go with their friends. So
Right.
I think that ultimately that was the major reason why the investors were just not as keen, and we said, okay, we cannot continue developing because it's become too expensive.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Now, before we get into what Pinch really is and what you do for your clients, I mean, you have focused on a lot of startups and been a founder of a lot of startups, right? And some people, including me, will be thinking, are you mad? It's hard work doing startups, right? And so, what was it about startups that you actually enjoyed? Because it can take months, maybe even years, to actually get a business going, right? Especially when it comes to tech and automation and everything that happens in the background, because you're constantly, like you said, updating, right? So you're building and you're constantly playing catch up with technology as well. So what was the focus or the desire around startups?
It's a loaded question. Part of me thinks I'm just completely insane for doing what I do. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are. I think, we have this, I think it's this a few things. I think it's the curiosity
Hmm.
to do something interesting, to do something new. And B, being in that, ultimately, if there was not people like me or you who have this grit and have this ability to try and to create new things, even if it fails, right? Because we all fail along the way. But ultimately, you kind of hope that one thing of those things is going to really generate a lot of value for the people that you're trying to
Right.
build this for, right? And that's what gets me excited about this stuff. I think when you're working in smaller environments, you can really see the fruit of your labor.
Yeah.
Like you can't really see that when you're working for a large corporation. It's like this big, huge wheel you're trying to push, and you're wondering, like, am I making a difference? If you're doing a startup, everything that you do is going to make a difference, either for the positive or the negative, either way. But you definitely see the fruits of your labor, and I think that's really engage. Like that's something that I really enjoy.
I love it. I love it. Now, you've built even more curiosity, right, in my mind, because I'm thinking now you've got all these different startups that you're involved in, how did you know, or what was your thought process in thinking, oh, this might be the one. This is a good idea. Let's go with this one, right? And maybe forget about a few others. Like, what are some of the key components that you look at to think that this is something that you want to actually work on?
For me personally, I think it's like a personal itch of mine that I want to scratch. I think it's this idea of, for the WeGo thing, like I didn't have a kid yet. I still went out. I still, I love to go to concerts, parties, go to
Right.
restaurants, go to movie theaters. So I think and I realized that there's very little out there that allow me to find what's really happening. And I was getting to the point where I was very picky at what I liked or I disliked. So it was a pain of mine that I wanted to fix.
Mm.
Same thing with the AR maps. I felt that there's not enough engaging, interactive tools out there for kids to really be excited about geography. So I truly think it's about, if you are an entrepreneur, that you better have something that you feel passionate about, because you need that intrinsic internal motivation to get you going, because otherwise you'll be like, you will hate your days and not that you have to work on it. So for me, and I think for many other entrepreneurs, is this, they're actually scratching that personal itch of theirs. So
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about your company, Pinch. Right now, there's a lot involved. There's a lot that you do for your clients. So, can you explain to our audience, in a nutshell, what it means to be part of Pinch and how you can actually help your clients get results?
yeah, absolutely. So I think, I think when we talked about how do we name this session today, and I really, what's been coming back to a lot of smaller organizations, or just generally large organizations as well, is this idea of ROI. And ultimately, like, what is ROI? And ROI is like, you put in $1, hopefully you get $2 back. That's the general idea. And I think the challenge with marketing is that people are saying, what is the ROI in marketing?
Right.
And CEOs are saying they might be even hiring a CMO, or they want to start a marketing function, and they go like, okay, I'm willing to put $1. What am I going to get back? And marketers and CMOs are saying, well, and there's challenges. There's challenges with the ROI conversation that marketers are having challenges with, and there's various reasons for that. And especially I work in the B2B space, so I can speak to B2B world, and I find with the few challenges exist. One is attribution. And what I mean by that, the marketers have a lot of different channels that they're in their toolkit, right? They could be doing email marketing, social. They can be doing direct mail. They could be doing events. There's a lot of different things. So it's very difficult to attribute the success of every dollar to a particular channel. That's number one. Number
Right.
two, I think it's this whole measurement. Like, what are we measuring? Like, are we measuring open rates of emails? Are we measuring how many people read our blog, or how many people watch or listen to our podcast? Ultimately, that's great for marketers to track and measure, but the CEO doesn't care about that. They just see, like, how does all this activity convert into the real dollars for the
Right.
organization and value? And I think there's a connectivity problem there. There's a gap. Then
Right.
there's like data fragmentation. You have all this data that's unstructured. You have reviews out here, you have some information about over here, and then trying to make sense of it all and putting it all together makes it super challenging.
Mm.
Then there is, the sales cycles are complex, long. So if you're sending out an email today, is that going to really have an immediate impact? Maybe not, because guess what? Buyers in the B2B space, they take months to educate themselves, right? They could be reading 2 blog of your, maybe they listen to 2 podcasts, maybe they watch 2 videos, maybe they read a couple articles. It would take them time to educate themselves, and that could take months. Marketers, and the CEOs even more so, are very, they want to see, like, okay, what is that email? What did that do for me? Well, guess what? It's a combination of those tactics over a long period of time that will give you the result. But no CEO is patient enough for that, right? They want to see, like, come on, what is that email worth for me, right? I spent $10,000 on Google Ads. Did it really give me the results that I wanted? And the answer for that is usually no, and at least in the short term. And the last one is this idea also of, like, Okay, so sales and marketing alignment, right? A lot of organizations, they don't have marketing teams, but they'll have sales teams, and there's always this misalignment. Is marketing doing the right thing for sales, and is sales enabled to leverage all this marketing
Right.
stuff that comes their way to really make it an effective seller? And the answer to that also is no, no. So I think there's been some growing pains with marketing with the ROI story. How do they how do they earn that seat at the executive table to say that, oh yeah, marketing is really, and there's a few organizations in the SaaS world, in my opinion, that really do a great job at that, connecting every marketing dollar spent to the revenue that comes out of it. So, but this is where AI comes in, I find. I think
Oh,
that there's an interesting opportunity there. So um, I want to tell you a story. Is that okay if I tell you a story? I just
yeah,
went to
please do.
So I went to this huge conference. You see one of the biggest tech conferences in the world in Vegas recently, and they were referencing this McKenzie study. Pretty pretty renowned consulting company. So they typically what they say, people listen.
Right.
And the few things that came to mind, and I'm like, holy crap! It's the dollars and the value that AI they say it's going to bring, it's absolutely mind-boggling. So let me just put it in perspective. What they're saying, they did a study of about 63 different job categories and what the impact of AI will be on those. And they found that for the 63 job categories or functions, uh, they're projected to bring in $4.5 trillion worth of additional value on a per annual basis. So what is $4.5 trillion worth? Well, uh, Germany's GDP in 2021 was $4 trillion. So imagine now AI is going to bring another Germany into the mix in terms of back to the world economy. Um, and what's even more crazy, in my opinion, was this, and it scared me, to be honest, as a marketer, is that they said that there's 4 job categories that own 75% of all the value that's going to be derived: customer support, engineering in terms of IT, sales and marketing is another one, and research and development. Those 4 job functions or categories
Right.
will bring in $3 trillion. That's basically the GDP of the UK a couple of years ago. So it's like, imagine that, like just, and then
Right.
I looked at marketing alone, that's $450 billion. And I'm like, I don't even know how to wrap my head around that, how big the value that is. And I'm like, well, how are they calculating that? What does that mean?
Right.
And and what was interesting that because I thought, oh, they're probably going to just fire every single marketer out there, and that's going to be the value there. But interestingly enough, no. The answer to that is there is some hope for all the marketers out there. Hopefully, we don't lose our jobs. But they felt that yes, there will be some consolidation, there will be some savings, probably around 10 to 20%, meaning that some functions will be probably automated, some jobs will go away because AI will be able to take over that. But ultimately, it's the value that AI brings to the table. And in terms of the ROI context, how does that all do that? Well, there's three things. One is this hyper personalization. AI has the capability. I think we talked about before the session. You said that, AI can really help to not only automate a lot of the job functions that we do today, but it's also this level of hyper personalization, which is super critical and important in marketing. What I mean by that is like ability to imagine now, instead of getting like a generic email that's sent out to 5,000 people out there that says, hey, fill in name, it's going to say something like, "Hey Kay, I've listened to your podcast last week about on this and this topic, and I find it super fascinating. Let's have a conversation. And here's some things I have that I have to share with you." The AI has that capability of doing that at scale. So it's not no longer a BDR or SDR person who has to send out these personalized emails. Now AI can automate a lot of that and then create content that's highly personalized based on the industry groups, based on people's interest.
Absolutely.
So that level of personalization is going to really drive up the results because people when they interact with your content, the more relevant the content becomes, the more chances there are that this content is going to be relevant to them. It's going to really have an impact on them. So that's one. I think, and then data. Well, imagine all this pains that I know all my colleagues and myself had to go through. Is like you're looking at HubSpot, you're looking at Google Analytics, you're looking at
Right.
plethora of other tools,
Yeah.
and that's like how to make sense of it all. Well, guess what? You can throw it into the AI grinder, and then it actually tells you like what's working, what's not working, how to connect the dots, and also finding those buying signals. What I mean by that is like, have you heard of the 95-5 rule at
No, I
all?
haven't. What's that?
So this is a new thing, 95-5, meaning that only that 95% of buyers are not in the market for your solution. It's
Hmm.
only 5%. So what means that if you're hitting people with an offer, 95% of them will not be interested because they're like,
Right.
hey, I'm not buying shoes today. I don't care. My shoes are perfectly fine. I don't care. I don't need to buy a new pair. So only 5% of those people. So the idea is like in marketing is like, how do we not create noise for those 95 or use a different tactic, maybe awareness, maybe just keep
Right.
us top of mind, but go after those 5%. How do we find those?
Hmm.
And the idea is like, propensity studies, trying to find buying signals. And right now it's super difficult and super expensive to get them. There's tools out there that allow you to identify buying signals. And a buying signal for a marketing agency could be maybe an organization has open positions in the marketing. That's a buying signal for me, right? Because that means that they have an actual need for marketing service, right?
Right.
Now, they're trying to hire someone, but maybe I can swoop in and say, hey, you don't need to hire. You can call Martin, right? You can call Pinch.
Right.
But it's just an example of a buying signal. So that data is out there. The question is how to find that data, how to make sense of the data, and how to use the data to make the best use of it. And I think AI has the ability to do that. And in terms of like sales and automation, obviously, which jobs is it going to replace? I think the jobs or the people who are not willing to use AI, right? I think
Hmm.
those people who is like, no, 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 I'm going to keep writing my headlines for my social posts by hand. Well, guess what? AI is perfectly positioned to do that work for you, right? Like to take content from a long form content and converting that into social posts or so those folks who are not willing to leverage AI and grow are going to be in trouble. But AI again is going to automate a lot of these roles, a lot of email marketing function, a lot of content development, writing content. I think that's going to be a lot of those tasks will be automated. So there's a lot that's where the savings I think will come in marketing. The AI will do. And in terms of the sales and enablement and working with the sales organization, like we are actually experimenting with custom chatbots right now. And what it is that you can index your own content, all the marketing content. I think one of the biggest challenges that we found with working with sales folks is that, they have a lot of different priorities, trying to get to market, trying to sell to their prospects. And then marketing comes to them and says, hey, use this stuff because we have this campaign going out. Well, that might be completely misaligned with what they're doing. With AI, with this custom chatbot that we've built, is it allows them to not having to use that content and trying to sift through 10 different ebooks, white papers, emails, blog articles. We indexed all this content. So now the sales folk who's having a conversation with their prospect, they can literally ask questions to the chat and saying, hey, what do we have available on this and this
Right.
offer? And the answers reveal themselves without them having to consume so much content, right? So there's a lot of opportunity and promise out there that allows to have AI really change the ROI conversation. And ultimately, what I'm most excited about is not for the big organizations because they already have a pretty sophisticated marketing function, but for the smaller organizations, because those ones who historically hadn't had either the money, the resources, and now because the ROI is going to be much better defined and much better to actually put on paper,
Hmm.
the CEOs will be like, okay, you know what? If I know that this benchmark exists, I'm willing to take a risk on marketing and actually invest to grow my business. And I think ultimately that's probably what I'm most excited about.
Oh
So,
wow. Oh my goodness. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time, but it was awesome.
right.
And the fact that you know, AI isn't just surface based, it can actually really go in depth into the background of your business and give you all this data and analytics. It's not just about going on ChatGTP and asking for information and it just spits it out, right? It's actually going in and calculating all this information that as human beings, we wouldn't be able to do, right? Not that quickly anyway, which is awesome. Now, Martin, I know at this point, people are probably thinking, oh my goodness, I need to get in contact with Martin. How do I get in contact with him? So where can they go to connect with you?
I mean, the simplest is probably LinkedIn, although my name is not the easiest to pronounce or spell. So I'll give that to you. So just look for Martin, Martin, and the last name is Pietrzak, or Pietrzak for those Polish people out there. And just find me on LinkedIn. Alternatively, you just go to my website, pinch.marketing, and you just use ability to contact us. Yeah, and then we're more than happy to have a conversation.
Fantastic. Now, guys, all the information will be in the show notes. So make sure if you missed anything, go to the show notes, go and connect with Martin, go and check out his website, see what else he's doing, because I guarantee that he will be able to help you, especially when it comes to tech and putting things into place to actually future-proof your business, right? How important is that future-proofing? So go ahead and connect with him. I promise you, you will not regret it. Martin, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Like I said earlier, so much nuggets in such a short amount of time. Oh my goodness.
Thanks, Kay. I hope I didn't overwhelm anybody. But like I said, let's have a conversation after. Kay, thank you so much. It was a pleasure and love your show. So thank you for that. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Awesome. Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.